reasons on MySpace it's called Nicky Tesco and The Preacher is because there's someone else out there who called himself Nicky Tesco. Yeah. I think he plays in a covers band in Brighton or something, I'm not sure. I think he's received some flack for it as well.
I'm going to say some royalties of yours.
Well, I'd be most annoyed if he had. But then what happened? It was way back, and when they were starting that whole networky, online community thing. So I said, oh, you should have a MySpace, So, and I hadn't realised you had to register it as a music thing to upload loads of songs. So I registered Nicky Tesco.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Or Nicky Tesco, or whatever, whichever, I can't remember. And then I couldn't upload the song, so I'll cancel this and start again. And even though you can cancel it, you can't start again. Yeah. So I thought, well, I'll keep that one as that, and then I'll make another one. And it was like, I'd had this idea that, if I'd done something musical with Nico, my brother-in-law, great guitar player and writer, he's also a really good bloke. But I'd always had this idea that, if we'd been on stage, I'd really like to have given him this kind of all-in-black persona, this kind of very... Well, on the MySpace thing, I used that picture of Robert Mitchum in, what's that film where he plays that psychopath preacher, something about a night. And I kind of saw Nico like that, on stage. So I thought, I should call it that just in case we get something off the ground and call it, Nicky Tesco and The Preacher. And then I kind of didn't get it off the ground, but it's there, and I kind of put up various bits and pieces, or, and I thought, well, I've not really done anymore, because a lot of guys as well, because I'm only a lyricist, so I say only, but I'm a lyricist, and so I'm always going to need someone to work with musically.
It's your art, so you've got to carry on writing and doing things.
Yes, I mean, you're right. I mean, I guess I had a little bit of a kind of long grey afternoon of the soul, and one of the joys of the fact that I'm married to quite a creative person is she's been increasingly pushing me. Yeah. And I was about to get something together with Mark, because Chuck Sabo, who's was an American guy who lives over here now, was the last drummer The Members ever had. He and I recently hooked up again, and I said, look, I'd really like to do something musical again, and maybe something along the lines of not just like a standard gig. I wanted to maybe do readings from my book, so not so much readings from the book where I sat there and read all seriously, but I don't know if you caught like Steve Earl when he was coming back from the dead, so to speak. He wasn't there, but he had this comeback where he cleaned up. He'd been strung out and smack, and he cleaned up. Not that I'd been strung out, smack. He came back and he did this very much raconteur thing where he would illustrate the set with like stories from his life and events, and it was brilliant. It wasn't just funny, some of it was funny, some of it was quite sad, but the whole thing was brilliant.
I think I've caught a bit of that, yeah, quite.
And he would then play, just here on an acoustic guitar, but he'd be able to do Copperhead Road and invest it with as much power as it had when he had a full electric band with him. It was literally just him, and it was like one of the best things I saw that year. Okay. And I kind of thought, well, I'd like to do something along those lines, but except, maybe with a band, bass, drums, guitar, a keyboard player, and sort of recount various stories, like how I met Eddie Kendricks, and, how I met, not just name-droppy stories, but they're all kind of attached to quite stupid things, and, and Chuck was like, well, yeah, that's brilliant, that sounds like a great idea, should we see if we can get Mark?
Who's that, Mark Smith?
Mark Smith, yeah. So I said, well, yeah, I'm not, I hadn't spoken to him in a month or so, and I didn't know what he was doing, if he was still playing with the Waterboys. So we phoned him there and then. And I said, hey Mark, I'm with Chuck, you know, we want to do this. And Mark was like, fuck yeah, that sounds brilliant, you know, let's do it. And I said, look, do you want to come over for dinner next Friday? This was the Saturday I was speaking to him. I said, come over Friday. And, you know, because he had some gigs on that week at 606 and things like that. And we were just going to, you know, kick it around and come up. And I said, you know, maybe we do, you know, find a guitar player. He said, yeah, I won't be a problem. And I know this person and that person. And then I couldn't get hold of him on Monday, and that's when, you know, we found out he'd died. And I was when I was trying to find out what was going on and everything, I hadn't met Jeremy and Paul Stacey before, who I've since met and think are really wonderful, wonderful people. But I think it was Paul I was talking to, and Paul said he was with Mark when I called. And he said, Mark got off the phone, he said, and he was so excited. He said, oh, you know, I'm going to do some work with Nick again, you know. Because Mark and I used to produce together and write together and arrange and all that kind of stuff. And I guess, so I was all psyched to do it. And, you know, when he decided to leave, he kind of left me a little bit adrift. I know I've got to sort of get my head around it again and move it forward again and try to do it as, you know, as another one of my brother-in-laws who's Parisian said to me, he said, you know, you owe it to Mark, because he wanted to do it with you. So it shows that you've got something that people want to be involved with. But it was just suddenly the idea of sitting down again and trying to either audition musicians, because these were guys I didn't need to audition, you know, these are guys who are like, their second nature is to gel, you know. I've seen Chuck and Mark had played once before, years ago, when I was producing, I'd written and produced a theme song for a film called The American Way, which had Dennis Hopper in and Michael J. Pollard. And I got the gig to produce and record it, and I was working with this engineer, I think it was John Brand, who went on to manage the Stereophonics. And here are there, and we were setting up drum sounds, you know, so we had Chuck on drums and Mark on bass. And John turned to me and said, you know, like, we should be recording this, because they were just like working out, just warming up and that. You know, we should record this, mix it down and sell beats, you know, because the stuff they were playing, it was like, you know, it was right up there with, you know, Bernard Edwards or, you know, or the kind of Funk Brothers from Motown, you know, and all that kind of, they were just, the two of them were just, boom, right in the pocket, you know. And so the idea of me working with them again, I was like, God, that's so exciting, that's so genius, you know. And I mean, Chuck is someone who's, you know, to this day he's played with, you know, Tina Turner, Terence Trent D'Arby, you know, more recently, you know, Natalie Imbruglia, but, you know, also some very funky people, some very big rock things. And, you know, I know if I said, look, could you find some, you know, the right people, he'd find the right people, and so that's where I got to take it from. But it was just the idea, you know, and so with the fact that Mark's gone, I've not really known what to do.
So you got the lyrics and things ready to go?
Yeah, I've got ideas, and I never really have anything ready to go. And I think part of it I would revisit things as well. Yeah. You know, because I touched on the fact that I did that stuff with J. Walter Negro. Yeah. Now I'd love to bring the guy who played guitar for that back, you know, Lenny Case.